So welcome and thanks for joining in this evening. We are launching a 10-week Biosphere challenge, and we're going to tell you what that means throughout the next hour. And Dean Eaton from Dublin Bay Biosphere and Eleanor Turner from Kerry Biosphere have joined us to talk about their work and some exciting competitions that they have coming up. And we also have Dale from Naturally Wild. Dale is a wonderful environmental educator and garden designer and all kinds of exciting things. So it should be a fun evening. We'll also be announcing the first 2 challenges of the 10-week challenge, so you guys can get a head start. So we'll start off with Dean. Would you like to go ahead and give us an introduction to the Biosphere?
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Nessa. So I'm just going to share screen so that I can show people a few slides. Can everyone see that? Yes, we've got thumbs up and nodding and all sorts of other bits and pieces, which is fantastic. Okay, so this is a wonderful view of the Dublin Bay UNESCO Biosphere. You've the River Liffey flowing through our capital city, Dublin, out into Dublin Bay. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have North Bull Island. Behind that, you've Howth, and beyond that, you have Arlendside. And on the right-hand side, you have Dunleary, and just beyond that, Dorky Island. And in the centre, you've got Dublin Port, which is another key element of the biosphere. So hopefully I can get this to move on. So if you were to see this poster showing the wildlife in a particular area, you'd be amazed and you'd say that's really rich in biodiversity. And you probably wouldn't associate that with the capital city, and you certainly probably wouldn't associate that with our capital city, but all of these creatures are from the Dublin Bay, which is amazing. And here is an image of North Bull Island. Now, sorry, I can hear my dog scratching at the door, so I have to let him in. And these are the joys of working from home, of course. So this is North Bull Island. This is the original home of the Biosphere. So this was made a Biosphere in 1981, and that came about when a group of people, a group of activists said that, you know, this is an important site and needs protecting, and worked with Dublin City Council to make that a UNESCO Biosphere. And you know, great. I mean, UNESCO Biospheres don't bring any additional legislature, but it just gives it a little bit more oomph, if you like. And you know, obviously, brings about a different way of managing. So here's an image of our biosphere, or a couple of images and maps of our biosphere. So on the right-hand side is a fun map showing some of the activities that go on in and around Dublin Bay. And on the left-hand side, it shows the breakdown of the different zones within the biosphere. And this is quite an unusual biosphere in that we have a mosaic zoning system, because we have a number of key nature reserves around the bay. So these are our core zones, and then around that we have our buffer and transition zones. So what is a biosphere? So biospheres are internationally recognized for their biodiversity value, yet also actively manage to promote a balanced relationship between people and nature, and that's really important. It's people and nature coming together. It's designated by UNESCO, United Nations, Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And it was launched in 1971, so obviously this is the 50th anniversary of the Biosphere program. There are 714 biospheres around the world in 129 different countries. So yeah, there you go. This is an example of man connecting with our biosphere in a safe and secure and responsible manner. You know, flying kites on North Bull Island. So biospheres have 3 main goals. The first main goal is conservation, to protect the biodiversity, cultural diversity, development, foster an environmentally sustainable economy and society, and learning. So this is research, but also sharing knowledge. So that's what this is all about, this outreach. So we've an image there in Dublin Port of tern colonies. So it shows, you know, man-made structures being used to support nature. So our vision for the Dublin Bay Biosphere is to celebrate and promote a wider appreciation of the natural and cultural heritage of Dublin Bay, to capture the inherent passion of the community for the biosphere concept and for the Dublin Bay Biosphere being exemplar for a new wave of biospheres in the world network. Again, another fantastic image showing the business connection, so the sustainable development. So these are discovery tours that take place in around the bay, where anyone going on one of these cruises have an opportunity to learn about the biosphere. Our vision is also for Dublin Bay Biosphere will be recognised and valued as a place where people, nature and culture connect, and where residents, visitors and businesses directly contribute to the conservation of their natural, cultural and built heritage through everyday actions. So it's all of us coming together, working together in partnership. The biosphere will support a strong local economy based on ecotourism and responsible recreation, where statutory NGO business, community and environmental sector work in partnership for a sustainable future. So that's the, that's biospheres, and certainly the Dublin Bay Biosphere in a nutshell. And again, we've got images of kite surfers. Now, interesting thing here is that we've been working with one of the big businesses in Dublin Bay, Pure Magic, and through them we're able to get the message out to kite surfers that not to kite surf at low tides, an hour either side of low tides, because these are important times for seals resting. So this is a way that we engage with our community and work with local businesses to get the correct message. This is a really good image of some Brent geese. The Brent geese are not with us at the moment. They're back in the high Arctic Canada, hopefully not baking, which parts of Canada are really suffering at the moment with 46 plus degrees temperatures. A real sign of climate change. But these guys visit us during the winter for a cool down. Their summer holidays is our winter, so they come to Ireland then. And I've got a little video that I want to show you. Okay, and
how many? Like loads.
Good.
At least 80 of them.
And this is Tess Handby.
They're just doing that landing thing where they hover and then they stick their feet out and then they're coming in and they're turning around and they're landing. Yes.
A PhD student at the University of Exeter Penrith campus in Cornwall. Tess is working in collaboration with the Irish Brent Goose Research Group on a project aimed to quantify patterns of urban habitat use and the behaviour of Brent geese during the winter in Dublin Bay.
So there's definitely a family out there from this year.
Tess's research is part of the Dublin Bay Brent Geese Project, which is funded by 3 local authorities: Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council, Dublin City Council and Fingal County Council. Each year, the parents and young birds complete one of the longest migrations undertaken by any waterfowl species from the high Arctic Canada. After a 5,000 kilometre journey crossing Iceland and Northern Ireland, they return to the salt marsh habitats within the Dublin Bay Biosphere. The nearby estuaries provide a favourable food source by day and a place to roost at night. The Dublin Bay Biosphere is a unique area that is internationally recognised for hosting many migratory species over the winter, while sitting alongside a densely urban landscape. North Bull Island was designated a UNESCO Biosphere in 1981 and expanded to include the whole of Dublin Bay in 2015. The zone covers 300 kilometres squared, including the areas of ecological values and the communities where over 350,000 people live and work. Preserving the biosphere as a refuge for both resident and overwintering wildlife requires evidence-based sustainable management programmes, a key practice for all biospheres.
On 3, 2, 1, 5.
Catching birds to ring them and place GPS trackers on adults allows the team to record the number of urban sites the birds use and identify any effects or consequences from spending the winter in an urban landscape.
Have you got an adult, Drew?
Leave that one for now.
One here.
These two might be a pair.
1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 4.
When they first arrive, the Brent geese feed on green seaweeds and other plants on the shoreline. They quickly run out of resources as plants have very little to no growth over the winter. Therefore, they gradually move from the intertidal and salt marsh area to feeding on coastal grasslands, sports pitches and other open spaces all around Dublin.
So once you'll take a bird out of the sack, it'll come to processing, we'll put Darvix on it, then it will get morphs done, so head, bill, wing, weight. And then if it's a GPS bird, it will come to me and I'll put a GPS tag on it.
The research identifies the benefits and challenges of the biosphere. it also tries to better understand why the geese leave the specially protected areas to travel inland and graze on man-made infrastructures. The results will help the biodiversity officers provide informed advice and implement positive management practices. As human beings, we are part of the ecosystem and responsible for its ecological health. The challenges and benefits of Dublin Bay Biosphere are many. A scientific approach to the biosphere will help inspire a positive future by connecting people and nature.
Okay, very quickly, I need to move on because I'm conscious of the time. Oh, no, that went that. Again, some images showing the links between ourselves and nature. I've got another video here on kayaking, but I'm not going to show you it because of the time constraints that we're under. But on our website, we've got a series of videos that showcase different activities that you can participate in and around the bay. Moving on, it's just some of the educational work we've done in the past. We've had groups of children working with Birdwatch Ireland to study brent geese and other birds living within the biosphere. This particular school were brent geese ambassadors, learning about the brent geese and how they can best protect them. And the important thing about the research that Tess is doing is that helps us understand more of what's happening with the brent geese and what they need in order to survive effectively. And that means we can manage the bay more effectively, to support them. So there's a lot of that kind of research going in and around Dublin Bay. One of the things that we're doing at the moment, we've got a number of social influencers that are sharing their interest and passions for the biosphere. So we've a particular social influencer that's taking pictures of people within the biosphere and having them tell their story. We've run a series of education communication workshops. We ran a whole host with Dale there early in the year, which were the homeschool webinar series. And we followed that up with a primary school webinar series. And all of these are available on the Kerry YouTube channel. Moving on, we've got a Dublin Bay Biosphere Award. I wanted to go maybe into a little bit more detail for this, but I think I'm going to leave that to Dale if he has the time. That's fantastic. Thanks very much, buddy. We're also running a young nature bloggers competition, but that's also being run by 4 other biospheres in the UK and Ireland. And I know Eleanor wants to talk a little bit about that, so I'm going to scoot through that and just finish off with a couple more fantastic images, underwater images that were taken in and around Dublin Bay there a couple of years ago. And just to let you know that we're actually running another competition, an underwater photography competition, so that we capture more fantastic images of the life in and around Dublin Bay that we can share with people who have a passion for nature and wildlife. So that is, thankfully, the end of that from me. And I'm going to pass you over to Eleanor, who's going to share with you some of her knowledge.
Thanks, Dean. That was a lovely presentation and a lovely introduction to biospheres as well, which is great for me because it means I don't have to do it. So I have very quickly thrown together a few slides here, just as I was looking at your beautiful pictures of Dublin Bay. I thought I'd better represent the Kerry Biosphere well as well. So the Kerry Biosphere is managed in partnership with the company I work for, which is South Kerry Development Partnership, and the Kerry County Council as the local authority, and the National Parks and Wildlife, the National Park Service. So it is a much smaller biosphere in terms of its population, of course, since you have a capital city right in the centre. We're much more of a rural biosphere, and we're actually landlocked. So we're a mountain biosphere. So as Dean mentioned, what biospheres do tends to fall under 3 headings or 3 pillars. So there's always an element of nature conservation. There's work on sustainable development, as Dean mentioned, connecting with the businesses. And there's also research and learning. As Dean also mentioned, we do the primary schools workshops, and we do a lot of community education workshops and awareness raising as well. So just to run through a few of the highlights from Kerry. So here is a map. So when I say we're landlocked, you can see there we're around the McGillicuddy Reeks area, which if you can see, my pointer is around these mountains here. And then the Paps mountain range is also included, which is over here at the eastern side of Kerry. And then in the centre, Killarney is our biggest town. And we also have the famous lakes of Killarney here, which are right in the centre of the biosphere. So the red zone here is what we call the core area. That actually coincides with the area of Killarney National Park, which was first designated as a biosphere back in 1982. And then after a review process in 2017, the area expanded to include these orange area here, which is what we call the buffer zone, and the green area, which is what we call the transition zone. So that's where I'm working at the moment. Now, if you see a picture like this, you might be thinking that it's the Alps or somewhere else like that where you think of big mountains, but this is actually taken in Kerry, and not far from, that's Carntoohil there, and right in the centre of the Biosphere Reserve on a winter's day. So it's a very dramatic landscape. A lot of it is very remote and hard to access. So there's very interesting sort of social issues with how do people work in that area, how do we get resources there, and what does a lifestyle look like when you live in a remote area up in the mountains like this. Now, this is a picture of Killarney and the red deer. So we have a red deer herd, which is actually the last or the only indigenous wild herd of red deer in the country. And that's Killarney town in the background, which, as I said, is the biggest town in our biosphere. And it is a famous tourist destination. I'm sure hopefully a few of you have been there and will be visiting again soon as we all open back up. We also have 3 different types of woodlands. We have alluvial forest, oak woodland, and yew woodland that are designated habitats within the Biosphere Reserve. And Killarney, of course, is famous for having the national park there and all these beautiful woodlands as well. I mentioned the lakes already, and there's several of them, Lochleen being the largest. And there's also a lot of activities that happen around those as well. This was taken by a local photographer called Peter O'Toole, who, if you check out his Facebook page, he has the most amazing scenes of the Kerry Biosphere. There's a project working locally called the McGillicuddy Reeks EIP Agri-Environmental Project, and that works with the farmers looking at agri-environmental schemes to try and promote better habitat management within the areas of the Reeks where it operates. So this is all sort of upland heath areas, and they're working with the farmers to try and improve the habitats there, improve the grassland, and it's been quite successful. So this picture here is in the summertime with one of the farmers up just about to bring in his sheep. So as you can see, it's quite a hike up the mountain, so it's quite an interesting lifestyle. Now here's another lovely shot, and if you're very keen of eye, you might make out in the background a few stands of rhododendron. Now this is a beautiful picture, and you might not think there's anything wrong with it. There's actually an old ruin at the front here, which is very, very lovely. But rhododendron is an ongoing issue within the area, and it's an invasive species. So part of the work that we do here is raise awareness about that and help to manage it in certain areas. And the EIP project I mentioned previously, the McGillicuddy Reeks EIP project, also works on rhododendron management. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the Kerry Biosphere. And now I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Nature Blogger competition that Dean mentioned earlier. So this is actually celebrating the 50th anniversary of the UNESCO Biosphere Programme. So 50 years old this year. What we're asking is for anyone aged 21 or under to write 500 words about their experience in nature, their favorite wildlife or their outdoor space within the biosphere area. And as Dean said, there's 4 biospheres actually taking part this year. So if you submit your 500 words to Kerry and you're selected as a winner, you'll then go forward into the international competition between Dublin Bay and 2 biospheres in the UK as well. The competition is open until the 12th of August, so you've got loads of time to work on it. And I'm sure with this lovely weather we're having, people are all getting outside and enjoying the outdoors and connecting to nature. So you'll definitely find plenty to write about. So if you want to share it or tell all of your friends, anyone that you work with, get them engaged in this, send in. You could write, or you can also add photos or drawings if you like. Open till the 12th of August, and there is some amazing prizes to be won within the biospheres, and then also the international competition has some really fabulous judges as well. So Darragh McNulty is going to be one of the judges on the international competition too, so there'll be a bit of prestige there. So that is me done. I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you all very much for listening, and I'll pass on, I think, back to Nessa, is it?
Thanks, Eleanor. That was lovely. I've just bought Darragh McNulty's book, and it's put me off blogging forever because he's so good, and he wrote that when he was about 14. But it is wonderful. I have a few slides here as well, and I'm going to introduce you now to the 10-week challenge. So can everyone see those? Yeah, great. When Dean asked me to organize an action project for the Biosphere, that was supposed to happen last summer, and it was originally going to be focused in my local neighborhood in Mount Marion and be very like outdoors and action in person. Obviously that changed a lot. So now the silver lining of presenting it online is that we can reach further afield, and we were able to reach out to Kerry Biosphere, and literally anybody who comes across this challenge can try it out this summer. So the idea is that each week over the next 10 weeks, we'll release a new challenge for people to try out at home or with their family and friends and communities. And I'll give you a little bit of background on what that's all about. So, so we have a vision for the Biosphere of a network of thriving ecosystems and sustainable communities. And each of the tasks over the next 10 weeks is designed to get you in touch with nature, you know, create a shift in our thinking, reminding us that we're part of nature and not that nature isn't just something that we go and visit, and considering our role in the ecosystem and in the Biosphere. Because then flourishing ecosystems will, of course, reward us with helping to reduce climate change and feeding us and providing a whole wealth of physical and mental benefits. So we're asking you to sign up to a Facebook group called Our Natural Habitat Biosphere Challenge. And that's where the challenges will be announced, and where you can also share how you're getting on with the challenges, how you're interpreting them, because I've left them quite open so that you can interpret them in different ways, and share suggestions and ask questions. And over the next 10 weeks, we'll also have 5 workshops like this, 5 webinars, where there'll be a whole bunch of amazing speakers talking about their experience with the environment and culture and community and the arts. And they will give you lots and lots of inspiration for doing the challenges. So I'm a creative entomologist, and my mission is to reintroduce humans to their natural habitat through colorful encounters with insects. So I do nature outings and make art about insects and arts participation projects, do insect surveys. So I'm trying to bring as much creativity into these challenges as possible. And I really want to help people to think creatively about what our role is in the Biosphere. So you can go as crazy as you like with how you interpret the challenges. And there's the schedule of the series of webinars. Next week, our webinar theme will be community action in the Biosphere. And we'll have a speaker from an organization called Clean Medina, which is a multicultural volunteer organization that is about connecting people with environmental issues and working together to maintain our shared environment. And we'll also have representatives of Dún Laoghaire Rathdown County Council's Gardening for Biodiversity team, which is very appropriate for the first challenge, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And I'm also hoping to catch Kate McLaughlin, who's a local naturalist here in Mount Marion, and possibly make a video with her of the local orchid meadow, which she's been monitoring since 1994. So that's quite a challenge she gave herself there. So this is our first challenge, and it might be surprising because the action that you are to take this week is to do nothing. And when I say that, I mean put away the lawnmower, put away the hedge trimmers, and just spend some time with nature. So ideally, if you could put away that lawnmower for the whole summer and sit back and watch nature doing her thing and rewilding your garden the way she knows best. If you can't bring yourself to sacrifice the whole lawn, then just choose a patch of the garden and vow to rewild that and don't mow it until the autumn, and just see what grows there. So this is ties in with the Biosphere Award for kids as well. This gives you a chance to spend some time just being with nature and observing what you see. And that's the purpose of this, is that we'll only save what we know and what we love. And there's no better way to get to know nature than literally just to be with it and observe it and watch what's going on. And even if you sit in just that 1 meter squared that you've decided not to mow, you'll see hundreds of things going on every day, little dramas with tiny little bugs and all sorts of strange creatures that you've never noticed before. So just sit back and relax and see what happens around you. And the other reason that I've asked, or that I'm challenging you to do nothing and put away the lawnmower, is because we're facing an ecological crisis, and it makes sense to me to hand back as much land as we can to nature, so that nature can heal any damage we've done to the planet and help to reverse that ecological crisis. So, and if you don't have a garden, or if you can't rewild your garden, then pick a local park. I know a lot of the county councils these days are practicing a don't mow, let it grow policy, and letting all the wildflowers come up. So there's plenty to see. Here in my local park in Dún Laoghaire, the place is absolutely covered in buttercups. This photograph in the background is from there. So the next challenge, because you guys have turned up today, you get a head start on next week's challenge as well, is to, oh sorry, I forgot I wanted to show you my garden, which has been rewilded. This is my friend Brina, and they're sitting in the middle of our lovely rewilded lawn, which is absolutely full of flowers at the moment and covered in bees. So it's very, very quickly, you'll see a big difference once you decide to rewild your garden. We've also got a holly bush full of holly blue butterflies and lots of ladybirds. Now, the next week's challenge is to grow the wildest flower pot. Now, this is another odd one, but it was suggested to me by the Bee Time artists in Spain, who are currently mentoring me. And they tried this out in their local neighborhood, and they got people to cast aside what are sort of conventional opinions on the beauty of nature and neat gardens and straight hedges, and try to create the wildest habitat that they could in a flower pot. And at the end of the summer, at the end of the 10 weeks, we will have some form of a plant pot pageant to decide who has the wildest, the most beautiful from the perspective of wildlife flower pot. It's yet to be decided whether that will be in person or through photographs, but we'll see what happens. And this is Kate, who I was telling you about in the orchid field. That's just up the road from my house, and you can see there's some bee orchids there. So it's amazing the things that you'll find once you pause and look really closely at the nature around you. Let me just check that I haven't forgotten to tell you anything important. I would also, as well as sharing what you're doing on the Facebook group, I'd also love to get in touch with local independent businesses around the biospheres and make some kind of a real world way to share what we're doing as well, maybe through postcards, pinning them up in businesses or photographs. So if you're interested in hosting a little pin board or a blank wall for people to share what they're doing, just get in touch with us. So I think that's all my waffling done for now. And I will pass you on to Dale. who's going to tell us all kinds of exciting things.
Nessa, how are you?
Thank you.
I believe I'm back. People can hear me. How are we doing? I've got thumbs from people. That's good. Folks, my name is Dale Treadwell. I'm going to start this very, very quickly with a funny voice like mine. Obviously, I'm from a very far further south place than Eleanor is down in Kerry. I completely appreciate where poor Dean is this evening because Dean's got kids about to run up the stairs and annoy him. I've been able to go outside and give you a real virtual backdrop. I made sure that my kids, they're a bit bigger than Dean's, were kayaked out this afternoon. They are literally falling down with exhaustion because I can kayak faster than they can, which is all good. And what is most congenial to coming back to Nessa, it's great that you can always remember stuff. I remember my very first gig here in Island Nessa, which goes back 25 years ago. I came across because I met a girl from Kildare. I was a National Parks Ranger dash major kill person. I was the best man in Australia for doing away with weeds like rhododendrons. Everybody knew about it when I first came here and said, Dale, how do we do it? But I had a different background than that as all. And my first gig, it was in Mount Marion. It was on April 25th. I remember that day because it's Anzac Day in Australia. And the lawn I was meant to mow was covered in snow. So the lawnmower turned to a complete slush puppy. It was right. But when I went to this garden, I looked around and I said, geez, everything about this garden, because it was covered with trees. There was an old lady who owned the house. She was very close to Roebuck Road. And I was thinking, wow, if only I don't have to butcher this place today, because this is really the essence of what often is in a garden in Australia, in our suburbs. They're often kept for wildlife. That's what I grew up with, and that's what I kind of assumed. Now, I'm going to give you a few 360s. I'm going to do a few different things. I've got a couple of videos which I'm going to show as well. I'm fortunate in that I don't live in either the Dublin or Kerry Biosphere. I'll be the first to admit that I'm outside the pale, as they say. Any background noise that I've been muted the whole time is to keep away the sound of the guys arriving up and down with slurry tankers and combine harvesters, because I live in the middle of agricultural island. And I am a little bit of an outpost here. I have 1 acre. It was sold as an acre. It's really about an acre and a half. But I bought it with the whole idea of being a bigger rewilding zone. So I've had 20 years to work on the project. But I have some insights into what you can do in little places too, because on occasions I've been asked to come into a mate's place in Coolock, which the garden he grew as a kid, and said, look, mum's passed, we have to sell the house, but I don't want it being sold. Somebody came in and just slash the garden. I want somebody who can see what can be the garden and make their decision from there. So that's what I am. And I do have a rough background. Once upon a time, in 2007, I did a garden at a certain garden show called Bloom. It was the kids' garden. I believe might have got the vote that year as being the most popular garden, but it wasn't even on the voting panel. But that's me being a little bit possibly egotistic. We go from there. But what I'd like to do, first of all, because I believe I've been given the ability to share screens. I've done this before with Dean and Eleanor before, because the last one of these things, I think I had to, I think there were about 1,000 kids on the other end of a webinar. So I feel under less pressure today. So if it doesn't work for me, I'm not really going to get upset. I'd like to show you a little bit of something about something called a Biosphere badge. Is it up there? Can somebody give me a thumbs and tell me it's all right? Because nobody's talking to me. It's all good. Yeah, there's a Biosphere badge. It is out there for kids, possibly adults as well. I don't know, adults can apply for this too, Dan. It's to experience, learn, and take some action. Now, there are a series of videos. I'm going to show you none of these videos because I don't have time. Apparently, I know a lot about these videos. I spent 2 days doing them. My young son is there in one of them. He is the guy who's been exhausted by kayaking all day. I had to take him to Dublin Bay to make him kayak because he's pretty good at kayaking in lakes in Westmeath. There are all sorts of things about learning. There are loads of different things about the value of trees, which is kind of what I'm into. I'm a big tree person. I plant trees left, right, and centre. And I will, when we're talking about rewilding, I'm going to emphasise trees, even though I realise small gardens in Dublin can't always do trees. But I've some hints of what you can do. The value of bees is super, super important. Speaking of bees, poor Ness is going to hate me for this because Nessa asked me not to suggest the idea of doing bee hotels. I like bee hotels. I don't like the bought ones though. I make my own ones. This for, by the way, is in case nobody knew, there were about 100 different kinds of bees here in Ireland. One is the honeybee. All the major, there's one there. Most of the pollination is done by bumblebees and solitary bees. There's about 20 odd bumblebees, 22 in it. 77 different solitary bees, and this is the way I make my bumblebee or solitary bee hotel. Sorry, I make them out of little lengths of timber, which I might have stuck in the fire. I drill some holes in them. I get kids to do them in schools everywhere I go, and I stick them on my windowsills, all the windowsills of schools. And you can see already this year, my little solitary bee hotel is being filled up with masonry bees, putting in bits of mud, which is what it's all about. Goes on. The importance of shelter. It's all about making bug hotels and stuff like that, and making habitat. What's under our feet, which is all to do with bugs and bees, which is definitely what Ness is into. The importance of water, which is cool. I think that's my son's gangly legs. They look like mine when I was his age. Taking action, which is all to do with doing different activities, such as, I think, the bumblebee count we were talking about, maybe logging onto before, which is all good. Now I'm going to stop this share because it's a kiddie thing. But what I'm going to do, speaking of kiddie things, it's going to be hard for me to take you for a full tour of the garden, only because I live in the middle of nowhere and internet really isn't here. But I am going to do, very briefly, I'm going to take you for a quick little run around, give some ideas about what I think about rewilding, and I can come back and I'm going to stick on a short little vid. I'm going to shorten it down, as I'm not going to show the whole bit, on a bug hunt I did last year for National Play Day with my son in our garden, to give you the ideas of bug hunts. Speaking of bug hunts, I can hear the buzzing of bumblebees around. Now, if I bomb out, I apologise. It may not work for me. In my own garden, where I keep a little bit wild and all over the place, I plant these plants called buddleias. I love them. I know they're weeds all over the railway lines in Ireland. I used to spend a lot of time trying to deal with them there. But buddleias are a fantastic source of butterfly nectar later in the year. But what I prefer to do is let the grass grow. Now, I know
Dale has
And
returned to
he
the
said that
wild.
might happen.
He did. He should hopefully return to us soon. Dale, if you can hear us, we can't quite hear you.
You've gone too far into the wild, mate.
He's rewilded himself beyond internet coverage.
So Nessa, it was interesting, just whilst we're waiting for Dad to come back, the two challenges. So the first challenge, leave a bit of your garden, meter by meter is all you need to do to completely go wild.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So
Okay.
you want to leave everything, leave dead leaves, dead wood, and let your lawn grow.
Okay.
But we can't completely stop managing it unless you want it to turn to scrub. So you need to mow it maybe once in the autumn, in September, October, and rake off the grass so that you reduce the nutrients and get more flowers. So actually you do have to do something, but only once a year.
and the second challenge is to make a pot or sow seeds to make the wildest, craziest floral display
Yes. Yeah.
of
So
native plants, I imagine.
I'm going to leave it open for people to
Okay.
interpret what a wild flower pot, what the wildest flower pot looks like and what's in it. It should be judged from the perspective of wildlife. So what do insects want when they look at a flower pot? And the idea came from a Spanish phrase which literally translates as outside the pot or out of the pot, which means that you don't kind of align with the rules that are given to you by society.
Outside of the pot thinking, huh?
Exactly.
I like that. I like outside of the pot thinking. We've got Dale returning. In what kind of state will our good Aussie friend be?
He's being eaten by a dinosaur.
He is, yeah. I mean, that's normal.
That happens a lot. Yeah.
Dale. Oh, Dale. You know, don't
hello.
go too far from, you know,
I'm not going to walk
the
again.
hot spot.
No, what I was trying to indicate is my favorite thing is to actually let the grass grow. I do need to do some mowing in my own garden today, and I could be prelude to everything that I had to do a lot of work on a mower, which I've had for about 15 years. It still didn't work very well for me. I keep grass growing. 17 years ago, I did a garden at Bloom, and my main theory about doing the garden at Bloom was that I did a number of pods where I had cottage-style gardens in each pod, which was sensory plants. So we had one for sight, one for smell, one for taste. Actually, the taste one went forever because we had loads of different things which were all literally to be eaten. Everything was gone on the first day, but it was all good. I had more plants to replace the next day. But I let the grass grow in a huge area in the Phoenix Park, which went for about half an acre. And my whole theory was to just trim a pathway through all the grass, because by the 1st of June in Dublin, you have a lot of growth, and the grass was already about 3-4 feet high, which for kids is like going into the jungle. And I, in my own garden, keep the grass really, really high. I have paths everywhere where to go, but I keep the grass high. And that provides two things. Two, provides loads and loads of habitat for all sorts of insects and bugs at this time of the year, but over the winter months, it provides a food source for birds like it. I also said that I like providing shelter by the forms of trees. I realise in inner Dublin gardens, you're not going to be able to make loads of big trees, but my choice trees for inner Dublin gardens are rowan, mountain ash, hazel, and buddleia, butterfly bush. So I'm going to try this again. I hope that I'm still involved as being, even though I bombed out, as a co-sharer, Nessa. If I'm not, we'll find out. No, I'm disabled as a co-sharer. So, poor Nessa, you're going to have to make me a co-host again so I can send you on a... I was hoping to do a real tour, but I'll do a virtual tour of the garden anyway.
There you go. You should be co-hosting now.
Co-hosting now. Fantastic. Here we go. I have to change a couple of settings to make it all happen. And I'm not going to show the whole video. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to race through bits and pieces of it. I hope that's all there on the big screen for everybody. It says Dublin City Council. Somebody might tell me yes.
Yep, good.
Yep. Grand man, thanks, Dean, because I can't see anybody.
Boys and girls, how are you? Welcome to National Play Day. My name's Dale, and this is my son Nathan.
Hello.
Today, we're going on a bug hunt. To do our bug hunt, we need a couple of things to take with us. We're taking some nets, is that right, Nathan?
Yes.
We've got a little container that we can catch things in, and we've also a white sheet. And we're going to be looking for bugs in the air, on the ground, in the water, and in trees. Let's go on a bug hunt.
Let's race forward.
Push. Make sure that you keep your fingies
Let's
away.
race forward again.
Bug viewers, so you can have a close
And again.
cool stuff. Bring it up for me. And I'll see if I've got anything in it. This area where we've got loads and loads of insects in the air, Nathan. Things like butterflies and bees and hoverflies. And we've even got our little bee hotel beside us for the solitary bees to have homes in. Boys and girls, I like to not catch our butterflies and bees. I like to sit and watch them and seeing them doing their role, which is pollinating, taking pollen from one flower to another one so that we have nuts, fruits, berries and other crops. Can you see that one there, Nathan?
Right, that's enough of that one.
I don't know how you managed to get that Photoshop image to be waving about, you know?
I have a potential son-in-law nowadays who is very good with computer stuff.
You know, it clearly was a really amazing garden that you have there, full of wildlife. Yeah.
All good. Now I've got to be honest, fair Dean, you've been out here. I have a bigger block than most people will have, so it's unfair of me to sort of just you can do all of that. But I wanted to try to confine and say, sorry, that's a solid truck going by. Nessie, you'll hate my part of the world. I'm literally the only bastion of anything left.
You're like an oasis in the middle of it all.
Oasis in the middle of it all.
I was looking at the trees and thinking, could you coppice in a suburban garden?
No, I coppice some of the trees, the likes of the hazel I can't, which is why I was suggesting hazel's a great tree to have in small gardens. Because even though hazel can grow quite big over a period of time, you can always coppice it and cut it back in a similar way that you could. What I normally do with my buddleias every year is around April, May for me. It's after last frost. You can get away with it earlier in Dublin. I always cut them back almost to their butt, and they coppice back, and that way they don't get too big and unruly for you. And they also flower better when you do that as well.
Lovely. Cool. Well, thank you so much. That was an amazing tour. It felt like being in the jungle. It's a bit like that out in our garden at the moment, but on a smaller scale. We'll keep going till about 10 past because we want to have
absolutely. So we can throw it open for folks for questions, or even the questions from the panel and stuff like that. I know it was a big session to try to get through, and I disappeared for 2 minutes as well.
It added a sense of drama. We were missing in the jungle.
The world of living in Zoom. If it didn't work, if it didn't mess up a little bit, it would not be quite right.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, the mad thing, I mean, Nessa said at the beginning that, you know, this series was meant to be with a community in Mount Merion. And, you know, the lockdown, okay, means we've done things a year later, but it does mean that we've been able to connect with other communities and, you know, extend that reach and maybe get a few more people interested in how they can work to protect their own local environment. Be that in Kerry, be that in Dublin, or anywhere else really within Ireland, or who knows, even further afield.
And my first story about doing something on Roebuck Road is a true story. That was one
Snow
of
in April 25th.
25 years ago. I remember the house well.
Very good.
Nice.
So Nissa,
I wanted to ask our panel this evening and our participants, what is the most challenging or memorable action that you've ever taken part in for nature or the environment? I was excited to see the goose catching exercise. I've never seen anything so dramatic like that happening. So it doesn't have to be something that's physically and logistically impressive. Sometimes it's a psychological challenge or an emotional challenge. But what's
you know, I mean,
give us an example.
I mean, a good thing, National Tree Week. I was asked to help get involved in that a few years back, and we invited schools to place an order for a number of trees, and we distribute it for them. And I think we had a few hundred trees to give away, and I think by the end of the week of making that offer, we'd had something like 2,500 trees that were taken up by schools in the Dunleary Rathdown area. And that was repeated for a number of years. And, within a few years, we've probably given away 5,000 trees to schools to plant on school grounds. Now, we've got some big schools with some nice grounds, but, that was a real positive that showed us that there was real interest in doing something to mitigate the impacts of climate change and also support wildlife. So that was a positive.
That's really impressive. Nice to think you're reforesting the biosphere via the schools.
Fine. Challenges.
It's really lovely to hear schools getting involved, actually. I love those kind of stories. I think for me, one that's really it's been quite a challenge, but it's been quite rewarding at the same time. So it's quite a personal thing. Like, my parents actually have a huge lawn beside their house, and for probably the last 10 years or so, I've been refusing to help them cut the grass because I wanted them to let a section of it grow. And finally, this year, they've actually left half of it go completely wild. So there's really nice tall grasses with seeds on, there's beautiful flowers coming, and they've cut a few paths through it because they do have a big bird feeder, and pheasants come in from the fields and up to the bird feeder. But they've left half of it long, and they've kept the other side a little shorter so they can go and sit out and have their, tea or cake or whatever out on the lawn and still relax, but they've left half of it go wild. So after an almost 10-year campaign, we finally got success. So I think that's a great thing, that it's such a challenge, but it was such a great thing as well. It's sort of changing their perspective on what the lawn should be and what it was like. And the most lovely thing my mom said, she was looking out the window and she goes, I actually find it so relaxing to see the longer grass because there's more movement and there's more color and it's more interesting. The birds are spending more time in it. So that was a really lovely win that's just happened this year.
And Nessa, your tip:
fantastic.
Cut the grass in the autumn and rake the grass to reduce nutrients to get more interesting flowers.
That's right. Yeah, because the grass can kind of overtake everything else. So take it off, put it somewhere else so that the insects can live in it as a nice little heap of habitat. That's really,
yeah, and it is, and I'll to back that one. It's I have stories from all over the world where I've done different things which I thought were fantastic. But one of my, again, it's bringing it back close to home. It's involved in a project a number of years ago for down planting loads of a particular plant for one species of butterfly. It was called the buckthorn, and because I've been known to do this, I took two plants from all the plantings we've done in Dunleary back to my own place, and took some cuttings from them so that I have a understory underneath the bigger trees of this one plant. And in this last year, I've seen many of this one species butterfly. I've recorded them numerous times. I'm one of the few people in all of Ireland to be able to record this plant as part of the National Biodiversity census of these butterflies, because they just don't exist anywhere. And it's
the brimstone butterfly.
Having these plants planted, like anything, I often tell when I go into schools, I talk about kids. One of my simple things is that do you like butterflies? They say, I like butterflies. So what are butterflies before they're butterflies? They're caterpillars. I said, right, what do caterpillars eat? And they list through the crunchy, munchy caterpillar thing. And lo and behold, caterpillars don't eat those plants. Caterpillars eat things like nettles and docks and long grasses. So to have most of your frilatory butterflies, you need nettles and docks, and like to have many of the smaller butterflies, coppers, and are like you need grasses. That's what they do. And for this particular butterfly, it's just this one particular plant. It's all they eat. So it's having plants. If you have, they will eventually come. Now, it's taken 10, 15 years, but it doesn't matter. It's all about time and effort and work. And But yeah, but if you kill all the long grasses off, if you kill all the docks off, if you kill all the nettles off, you're not going to have caterpillars. And this is a chicken and egg. If you don't have the caterpillars, you're going to have the butterflies. And they go, that makes sense.
And I think Nessa's got like a load of questions to go through, so we're going to have to give short answers to this. And if anyone else wants to contribute, it'd be really nice to hear from.
I can see with Christian others. There, we've got Saka, there we've got somebody who's Galaxy A41. Galaxy A41. Feel free to ask questions. I know Mary Gibbons is there. Mary's very welcome to throw me questions, although I think I'll be seeing Mary very shortly as well.
Okay. So what's the next question, Nessa?
Well, it's exciting you're talking about leaving weeds to grow, and exciting that Eleanor's got her parents to to have that shift in mindset, because the thing that most baffles me is why we hate dandelions so much, and why we hate why we want to control nature and get rid of it from our gardens, because it seems counterintuitive. It seems like we should know, we should feel that it's good for us. And it's nice to hear that your mum does feel it now that she has it. So do you have any kind of insights into where people get this idea that we need to eradicate dandelions?
I have a little story, and it goes back from when I studied horticulture, and I'm a recovering horticulturalist, by the way, but I studied horticulture when I first left school. And obviously they say a weed is a plant in the wrong place. But they gave an example. There was an Indian lady who'd come to Britain, and she created this magnificent floral arrangement from flowers that she'd found nearby, and the majority of them were dandelions. And, you know, to most people, that would be seen as not a pretty display, but it was. You know, I mean, that you can create magnificent displays out of dandelions. It's just our thinking. You know, thinking has gone wrong. We've been trained to think that they're bad. I mean, they have a certain name, isn't it? Associated with wee bed or something? I don't know. Yeah, Nessa, you're nodding your head.
Pissenlit.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that.
French. It means pee in the bed.
Pee in the bed. You know, so maybe it comes from that a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I wrote a story whilst I was at Dunleary Rafton County Council as part of a biodiversity education pack, and it was all about children discovering how plants invade new territory, is what military speak. And we had the dandelions being the paratroopers of the plant kingdom, where the kids were going around blowing these dandelion, you know, the seed cases after the flower's gone, and then flying off and invading new territories. And there's a whole story based on that. You know, kids love that plant when it gets to its seed stage. But us adults don't like them in the garden. And I did learn that the Otraxicum officinalis, the dandelion, the seeds can last for 80 years, possibly more. And you know, they're pretty bomb-proof.
So it's pointless to try to eradicate them.
Yeah.
It will never happen. And they are, indeed, they are one of the most important early food sources for bees, and they're also full of minerals for us. So they're very, very useful. And I'm wondering, what advice would you all give to people taking on the 10-week challenge? What do you think people could do to make the most of this?
The best thing that you could say really is to take it slow. And to take your time. I think a lot of times people start with big plans and big energy, and it burns out quite quickly. You know, I think you have to appreciate that everything in nature happens in its own time. So, you know, you plant the seeds and you have to wait for them to grow. You can't just expect it to suddenly change overnight, you know? So allow things to happen little by little, and don't expect to wake up tomorrow with a whole new view of what plants are or how to look after your garden. You know, take things one step at a time and give yourself time to sort of transition into a new way of thinking, rather than expecting yourself to dive off into the deep end and maybe get overwhelmed. I think it's important to build it in slowly so that it can be sustainable, and then it might go beyond the 10-week challenge and become more of a lifestyle change that feeds into your life for the rest of your life, rather than being something that you really pushed for in 10 weeks, and then sort of it faded out afterwards.
Yeah, but don't take 10 years to realise that.
Not 10 years, but yeah, you know, give yourself time to get there.
Fantastic. Good advice. Good advice.
I think I already have a bit of a head start because I'll stay with Nessa. I'm her flatmate, so our garden is already halfway there. Can I just take a picture of that?
Oh, you mean present that as our wildest flower pot?
Yeah, that's not a flower pot. No. You've got to come up with a flower pot.
But I think we could safely say that we don't mow the lawn.
It looks pretty amazing, I have to say. So, any other questions?
Are there any questions from our participants who are joining us today? Do you have any questions for any of our speakers?
I was wondering about the bee hotels. What is that? And is there a controversy about it, or like, yeah, I was just wondering about it. Curious about what it is.
Is Dale trying to tell us about them?
Dale's telling us. Dale's being chased by a bee as we speak, and he's on mute. You're on mute, Dale. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
He told me that he had to untangle a dog or something.
Okay.
I don't think he realizes he's muted. He looks like he's telling us a really in-depth story.
There he is.
I'm like the old man who doesn't know how to put the mute button on. Sorry, folks. No, I had a very loud dog there for a second. I have two dogs. I have my own dog who's very bold, and I now have my father-in-law's dog because he can't look after him anymore. So there we go. And they were both loud because I told everybody, don't come in before 8 o'clock. And then they come in and the dogs went nuts. Bee hotels. I am going to send you to a website. The best thing about being a bee hotel is that even Eleanor might be able to put it up, or Dean put it up, or Nessa. I built a bee hotel for the Heritage in Schools tutorials, and it is how to make a bee hotel out of just a little log.
I think we'll put it on the Facebook page, Dale. It's the easiest thing if we share that on the Facebook page.
Thing of all. And it was quick and simple, and it doesn't cost you money. And in fact, I will tell you, I have bought ones, and every time I stick them up, they never get filled. But the ones I make just with a 10 mil battery drill, they always get filled. And whenever I go to a school, I got the chance to go to a school for the first time in a long time. 2 weeks ago was a school which led me in the door. The funnest activities kids did was with my battery drill making bee hotels, and we left them on every windowsill in the school, and they will be full of solitary bees before the year is out. And as Nessa's very, very keen to point out, is that in Ireland, the honeybees, we all think they're the best thing, but it's not. It's the natural bees which are there. It's the 22 odd bumblebees and the 77 odd solitary bees which do all the proper gig, because they're messy, because they're not really good at doing their gig. They get covered with pollen, and then they leave half of it behind the next time they go where else. With the honeybees are actually very good at it, productive, which is why they produce lots of honey for the hive.
Deb, I see you're unmuted. Did you have a question?
Oh, hi. I joined late.
That's okay.
And to thank Nessa for sending me the link. I have a lot of questions. I'm from New York State. I'm up in upstate New York State, and
wow, welcome.
Yeah, well, since 2018, I've started thinking about trying to get into that Kilrelig, the arts retreat there near Ballinskelligs. So I've been just finding out as much as I can find out about the area, and I'm just in total awe of it. And the environmental action group, I've been following the beach cleanups and all that. So I'm kind of overwhelmed with, suddenly I'm meeting all you folks and looking forward to this 10-week the webinar thing happening. One question I had, one thing that we have here is the ticks problem is totally, central New York State is like epicenter for ticks and horrible diseases and Lyme disease and stuff. And I was curious about if that is an issue over there, and because the one thing they love is the long grasses, you know, so I have 40, well, we have 40 acres and beautiful forest all around me. And we do mow a bit around the house. You know, I've got gardens and things, but I was curious to know what your experience is with ticks and over there.
Eleanor, that might be one for you, is it?
Yeah, Deb,
Yeah,
very quickly. I am from Australia, where I was a bush regen, and I actually spent 2 years not being able to move a neck after being done by a tick while getting done. I've never been done by a tick in 25 years here in Ireland, and
but some people have.
Some people have,
yeah.
But I don't know how. I don't think it's that common here in Ireland. Lyme disease. I don't think it's that common. I used to get done by ticks at home very often. I've never been done by a tick here in Ireland. Yeah. So, and I've walked everywhere. So, yeah.
I've met people who are campaigning to raise awareness of it because they have known people who suffer. So I think it is an issue, and I think it's just being careful about not walking, you know, with skin exposed in those areas. I think it's just boxing clever.
I've had 2 ticks in the last year.
The area where you're talking about, the Kilreelig Centre, it's actually not far from where I live. It's about 30 minutes away. Really, really beautiful. So if you do get the chance, Deb, it would be amazing to visit. And we do get ticks down here, definitely. Like Dale said, it's there. I don't think it's as common as in some other countries, but it is definitely present in Ireland. So it does warrant taking precautions. And as Dean mentioned, just, you know, being careful about where you're walking, making sure that your skin is not exposed, and checking after you're finished your walk to make sure you're not having any around you. Like, I don't know. I know of a few people that do have Lyme disease from ticks in Ireland. So it is definitely present. So it's worth being cautious, but I don't think it's as big a concern as it is maybe in some other areas. I always say we're very lucky in Ireland. It's feels like a very safe country in comparison to some other places and some of the insects they have to deal with. And around here, we generally seem to see them out like up in the fields around the mountains where you have tall fern growth or tall grasses. So it tends to be, if you're walking in an area like that, I'd be more cautious. If I'm just walking through a regular field, I wouldn't be too worried, to be honest.
Yeah, good
My
to know.
understanding, understanding is that the ticks increase when there aren't enough birds, certain types of birds to eat them. I think mainly game birds. So if we restore the habitat, that brings us full circle to rewilding. And if we can restore the habitat for those, then they should take care of the problem for us.
Awesome. Great.
Any other questions? Debbie, did you have any other questions there?
No.
Are you living in New York or living in Ireland now?
No, I'm from New York, and I've lived here most of my life. And I was accepted. I'm coming to Ireland the fall of October 2022 for about 10 days. And then my husband and I are going to be traveling around, hope to stay like a month or so. We're both really into the Irish music, and I'm a photographer, a retired teacher. So
we'll have to have another rambling house.
Most definitely. Yeah, keep following us. Follow us on Facebook, and there's lots of activities that we're going to be doing. We'll get you acclimatized to share some of the culture. Nessa, I'm sure most definitely will.
Absolutely.
So when you get over here, you'll be home from home.
Yeah,
I'm sure you probably are anyway.
And this is exactly what this project is about as well, building a community of people who will challenge each other and support each other in helping the environment and connecting communities and everything. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks.
So what are the 2 challenges, Nessa?
The first one is do nothing, and the second one is plant your wildest flower pot.
Plant your wildest flower pot. Easy peasy.
And we'll have... yeah, it's a slow start.
I told you I come in with a good bad joke at the end.
Oh, great.
Go on.
Oh, easy peasy lemon squeezy.
he's squeezy.
I work with families and kids, so I'm gonna share that.
Wonderful. Get them all to apply for
Got
the
to. I was just
Biosphere
saying I
award.
work with a lot of families and kids, so I'll share the link with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and check out the Dublin Bay Biosphere
you.
website. There was talking
I will
about
do
the
that.
Biosphere Challenge, which is for young
Thank you.
people. And we want young people taking part in the wildlife in the Biosphere Challenge, and that will all connect in with what we're doing here as well. So, go done. Thanks very much, Nessa. I think we've lost Nessa. I think Nessa's frozen.
I was thinking.
There she is. She's back. She's back.
Me. Dublin has bad internet as well. I love it.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
everyone. See you at
Thanks,
the
Nessa.
next webinar on the 14th of July. I've put the
Fantastic.
link in the chat there. Thanks so much for
Brilliant
coming.
stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Aziz.
Salon.